What's good, everybody? Scenes from the Spectrum podcast back at it again, episode 8, I think. Pretty sure
hmm
about it. SixersGraeme, SixersJustin with you guys again. Sixers up 2-0 against the Raptors in round one. Your thoughts on the first two games?
Uh, Honestly, amazing. Back to game one where I was in attendance for. I've never seen Wells Fargo that electric in my life. I mean, especially at the end of the game when Maxi was going off, everybody was having the Maxi chants, and it just felt like a dream. Honestly, Maxi dropped, and I think it was 38 points. Embiid didn't didn't score well, but got the win by 30 points, I think.
Yeah.
But the first two games have been absolute blowouts, and it's funny to see Raptors fans kind of crying on Twitter about free throws, and that's kind of all it's been all year long. It's just everybody complaining about free throws, but when you watch the game, they're getting fouled. So
Yeah, and you kind of expected that to happen. But yeah, again, the Maxi Masterclass. In game two, like Siakam didn't play well, Fred VanVleet didn't play well, and Embiid was able to eat and get to his spots, and they had no other choice but to foul. Like that's not Embiid's fault that he's getting fouled. We need to set that straight. And another thing is, I think that Doc Rivers is also done a fairly good job so far in this postseason through two games. So I'm happy about that. But the real test for Doc is going to be life without Matisse here coming up games 3 and 4. And I really think the Sixers have a really good chance of sweeping the Raptors at their current state, especially, we don't know what Scotty Barnes' injury is going to look like. But yeah, games 1 and 2, really, good job setting the tone. And the Sixers came into this. A lot of pundits thought that they were underdogs. Sixers kind of took that to heart. And, you just need one good performance from somebody in the big three of Maxey, Harden, and Embiid, and you win the game. Because, pound for pound, they're just better than the Toronto Raptors. And I feel like that's shown, and you can see that on the court through two games.
yeah, and like you said, special shout out to Doc Rivers for doing a great job with the rotations and kind of drawing up plays and all of that. I mean, you saw the kind of reaction in a post game interview after the last game of the regular season about Doc saying he was going to play DeAndre Jordan, and then he ended up not playing him for the first two games, and he went with the second year player, Paul Reed. I mean, nobody expected DeAndre Jordan to have his minutes cut to zero. We all wanted it to happen. Nobody expected it, and we're just glad it happened. I mean, Danny Green's in the starting lineup now, especially with Matisse not being able to play in Toronto, but he's really cut down Matisse's minutes. He's doing a great job with this short rotation that he's going on the uh, eight man, I think it is, rotation. But you know, we all like to hate on Doc Rivers, but when especially this year when it comes down to business, he's got it in the bag.
Yeah, and you look at game one, Tobias Harris played really well as well, along with Tyrese Maxey in that game. They both were the leading scorers. You had Maxey with 38, Tobias with 26, and you had a 19-point game from Joel Embiid, which you usually don't see, but he got it in the other way because of just making his passing and his gravity really paid dividends for guys like Maxey and Tobias. So even though Joel had 19, he had such a huge impact on that game because we know of what Nick Nurse is going to do, and that's going to be double and sometimes even triple team Joel Embiid once he gets his positioning in the post. And you saw them kind of let off that a little bit in game two, and you were able to see Embiid get to his spot, get to his footwork that he does so well, and he was just outsmarting the Raptors defenders, and he was getting his foul calls like he's been getting all season long. And I was told that that wouldn't be able to happen in the playoffs, but I digress. So Embiid not having the greatest game scoring wise in game one, but he still held an incredible amount of value for his team, and we saw that through Tobias Harris and Tyrese Maxey. That's what I loved about this team when Embiid wasn't getting his shot going, and not necessarily because he was having like a bad night. It's just he wasn't allowed to do what Embiid usually does. He didn't force anything. He let Maxey cook. He let Tobias hit his shots. And I think James Harden does a great job facilitating, especially for those two guys. And I'm going to be really, excited to see how more he can get Danny Green involved, especially with his uptick in minutes coming up with Matisse.
Yeah, huge special shout out to Tobias Harris for the way he's been playing recently. I mean, he's known to be very inefficient,
Yep.
not playing well, kind of shying away from the spot up shooting that we need for him to do. Um, but he's really done a great job at it. I mean, he's hit 3 threes in the past 2 games on good efficiency. He's been getting to the rim a few times, finishing, playing really solid defense. I love what I'm seeing from Tobias Harris. Another guy that's been a blast to watch is Paul Reed. He comes off the bench. He works hard. He gets rebounds. Yes, he may get some questionable fouls, maybe some inexperienced fouls, but that's what comes with an inexperienced player. But everybody's is playing their part, and if this team is gonna play like this the entire playoffs, I mean, the league has got something to watch out for. They got to get a little worried because we're coming for the ring.
Yeah, and let's talk about Paul Reed for a second, and not the fact that he does make stupid plays defensively sometimes, overzealous a lot of times, and it leads to some bad fouls. But I feel like Paul Reed is in a perfect scenario right now for his type of game style, where he just needs to play 10 minutes, give max energy. And when you play 10 minutes, you don't need to worry about foul trouble. And a lot of times, those 10 minutes are insignificant, whether they're in a pocket in the second quarter and at the end of the third. So I think that's a big thing for Paul Reed, is that he's in a good situation where his stupid plays don't necessarily mean too much, because he's going to be playing in the least expensive part of the games, where the other team has their bench unit on as well. So that's good for Paul Reed. And the other thing is, he just brings energy. He brings that spark where the big men and the forwards of the Raptors, they don't get any type of rest period, because you go from Embiid and then straight to a dog in Paul Reed. So I really love that aspect, and we did not get that from DeAndre Jordan. DeAndre Jordan, especially when he was on the court with Harden, it was extremely forced. He was out of position. He's old. He doesn't really run the floor particularly well at all. And then you look at Paul Reed, who just runs the floor. I mean, he's wanting that. He's going to give max effort for every single rebound he is going to go after, which I absolutely love. So I feel like Paul Reed is in the perfect situation where he can play his, 10, 11, 12 minutes, give everything he has in that time period, and then just play ball. So I
Yeah,
think that it's just perfect for it. It's literally perfect for someone like Paul Reed in this scenario.
yeah, kind of all we need from when we have the bench unit on is survive those minutes, and don't blow the lead. That's kind of all we need, and they've done that job so far. They've even gone to the point of extending our lead. It's just,
Yeah.
from where we started this year and how far we've come, and where we're at right now. I mean, it's just like, shout out to the guys and the entire Sixers staff. It's great to see, because this is something we've been kind of begging for all year, is just fix the rotations and play the right guys who are going to get the job done. And DeAndre Jordan is not that guy who's going to get the job done. Paul Reed is that guy. And, you know, Paul Reed is a huge kind of morale booster, I believe, for the bench, even if he scores a single point. And especially in the home arena, the fans love to see him. Game one, we were chanting B-ball Paul. It's just a blast to watch him, and the energy he gives off on the rest of the team.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think that he's going to get a little bit more playing time, because the minutes are going to be staggered a bit without Matisse. We're running a 9-man right now. We expect that to go to 8. So the players you can expect to play, of course, Joel, James Harden, Tyrese Maxey, Tobias Harris, Danny Green, and then you've got Shake Milton, Paul Reed, and George Niang off the bench. So that's kind of the rotation of what it's looking at right now. I don't expect like Isaiah Joe or Furkan to get any type of minutes unless it's a blowout. So I think that you can pretty much run with that 8-man rotation, and maybe that allows Paul Reed to get 2 or 3 more minutes. But I think that it's just, you're in a perfect situation where you've got your guys rolling. You just can't let up. You can't have a fourth quarter meltdown. You can't have Toronto come from behind in a game where they were down and out. So it goes from, the difference from 2-1 and 3-0 in a series is huge. I mean, it's so large, the gap between being up 3-0 and being up 2-1. It's incredibly long of a gap. So this game is extremely important, the one coming up tonight, that the Sixers can't let up. And not necessarily that, they can't play bad. Like, you can play bad and still beat this Raptors team, just because if you can give the ball to James Harden in the clutch, you can give the ball to Joel Embiid and let him work, even if the shots aren't falling the whole game. Of course, you're going to need some external factors, like you can't have the Raptors make every shot, you guys miss every shot. But again, you can't, have double-digit leads dwindle down into the fourth, and then you lose the game, and now the Raptors feel like they have all the momentum. And instead of 3-0, it's 2-1, and you let them win the next game, it's 2-2, and you're looking at a completely different series. So the biggest thing for me tonight is that I think it's going to be a close game. When the Sixers get their lead, they cannot let up. You can't let momentum shift. You basically have to take it from the Raptors and not give them a chance to even get back in the series. If it's 3-0, it's wraps. If it's 2-1, and depending on how the Raptors, if they win, depending on how they win, it could be a large momentum shift in this series. So this is an extremely important game for the Sixers to win.
Yeah, I really do think if we do win this game that, the series is wraps, and I think we, either a gentleman sweep or a normal sweep, I think it's over. But back to the point you said about, not letting your foot off the gas, we kind of did that in game 2.
Yep.
We were up by almost 30 points, and, we let Toronto sneak around and sneak up to us, and got all the way. I think it got to a 12 or 13
Yeah, I
point
think it was 11-point
lead.
game. 11
Yeah,
points. Yeah.
and by that time, the Sixers kind of stepped it up. Maxey,
Yeah.
Embiid, everybody was getting theirs. So I mean, Embiid had a solid, not just a solid game. He had a really good game. He had 19 points in the first quarter. Um, Nick Nurse got the message through to his players. He said, "Hey, we got to step up the physicality and intensity," and they did just that. They were making a lot of hard fouls, and that one funny picture of Embiid getting mauled by like 3 guys in the paint is pretty funny from game 2. But I expect the intensity to go even further, especially in Toronto. I mean, the Raptors want to show out in front of their home crowd, and they don't want to go down losing. So I expect a pretty tight game tonight, but I do expect the Sixers to win by at least 4.
Yeah, and I think the Sixers can pull it out. They're 2-point favorites, which I like. I like that line. If you're into betting, that type of thing, that's something that I'd be looking at. Sixers spread there. And yeah, I think it's a close game because the Raptors gonna have to throw literally everything at the Sixers, because they lose this, it's over with. So they're gonna throw everything they have. I expect Scotty Barnes to play. But with that, what type of Scotty Barnes do you get? Do you get semi-injured, or is he healthy? Is he on a minutes restriction? Right. So what type of Scotty do you get on that type on that type of injury that he's coming off of? So he was just in a boot a couple of days ago. So that's gonna be interesting to see, and we won't know until game time. But again, you got the Raptors in a must-win situation. They're going to throw everything they have at you. They've got a lot of good players, a lot of athletic guys that are going to be playing their heart out. If you can win this game, it's going to be a soul crusher for all of Toronto, and then you can breeze past and look towards the Miami Heat, which is looking like it's going to be in the next round. So this game even if you lose, it's you can still win the series, but you need to get them out of here, especially because of the way the schedules worked, where we're playing game 3 and a lot of teams are playing game 2, so you have that extra rest period, and I think you're in a perfect situation for the Sixers, the upper hand. You're proving that you're the better team, and I feel like the Sixers haven't even played their best ball yet. This would be a great time for the Sixers to play their best ball.
Yeah, like, for the Sixers to play their best ball, everybody has to be on their game, and we haven't seen that yet. We
No.
haven't seen every single player, play up to their best ability. I mean, we saw a game where Maxey went off, but Embiid was bad. Um, we haven't seen, kind of the hardened game, which I expect to see at least a one or two in these playoffs. Um, we haven't seen a big Niang game yet, a big shake. Um, we've seen solid Tobias games, but nothing crazy. But the Sixers' best basketball hasn't even come yet, and I think that's kind of my favorite part about the playoffs so far is we have a lot more to show, and we can put this series away tonight. Um, I wouldn't say it's a must win, but you know, kind of need to win this one if you want to put it away, because if you let the Raptors win this one, it kind of changes the series, and if you drop another game after this one, then you know it gets a little scary. But I think if we do win this one, we put the whole series away and we either sweep or we win back at home in 5.
Yeah, I think that it's Sixers in 5, whether you win or lose tonight. But you can't let momentum swiftly switch is what I'm trying to say. In the playoffs, and when you're playing in a hostile environment like Toronto, like it's a immediate switch of momentum, and we've seen it. Like, we've been in a series against Toronto, and we've seen it go both directions. Whether you look in Philly in Game 6, how the momentum switched so quickly there, and then you see earlier in the series where it looked like the Sixers were down and out. So I feel like when you know that coming in, you have to play your best ball when your back's against the wall, and that's what the Raptors are doing. But on the other side of that, you have to play your best ball knowing that the end is near, and that you only have a limited opportunity in this series to do what you do. And I feel like the Sixers haven't done what they really do. I mean, Shake Milton is a guy I'm looking to step up in this type of series, where the Sixers, maybe they need another ball handler off the perimeter or off the wing, or maybe he gets a two-man game going with Paul Reed in their limited minutes, and he brings that over into some Embiid minutes. And George Niang, a guy that could get hot from three. I would love to see Niang hit 3 or 4 shots from behind the arc, and Danny Green get involved a little bit more offensively, and not to mention James Harden, who is really done his job facilitating. Let's see what he does when he gets hot from behind the arc. So those are the things that I'm going to be looking for. Gary Trent Jr., I would expect to have a nice game. Fred VanVleet is someone I would expect to go off for some. He's going to make a lot of shots. Siakam's going to do his thing. He might have a double-double for all who can. They're going to play good. The Sixers, can they just be better? Sixers don't have to play good themselves. They just have to play better than the Raptors, and that's what they're capable of doing. But again, in this type of game, your back's against the walls for the Raptors. You know that they're going to bring everything at you. Sixers need to match that, and you can't have a lackadaisical effort knowing you're up 2-0, and you can't let momentum shift. That's the biggest thing. It's not necessarily like if the Sixers lose, it's the end of the world. For me, it's how the Sixers lose. If they lose because they had a hard-fought battle, it was close, they were going back and forth, but the Raptors were better in the last minute, I can live with that. If the Sixers are up 17 with 8 minutes to go and lose, that's another thing where, you feel like you're up 3-0 in that moment, and now it's 2-1, and you got to go out there and compete, 2 days later to make sure it doesn't go to 2-2. That's incredibly different from losing a game where you feel like it was hard fought. You just lost. You come back 2 days later, and then you shut them down and you win in 5 at Philly. So I think that if the Sixers lose, it's a lot determined on how they lose, but I don't expect them to.
Yeah, and if we do lose in a hard fought battle, I mean, I kind of look at it and say, all right, we tried. Maybe Toronto just wasn't missing down the stretch. Van Vliet was on fire. Siakam couldn't miss from mid range, and we just, our shots weren't falling. Then, that's fine, but we are the better team, and we've shown it time and time again in these past 2 games against this Raptors team. But I do expect us to win. We do have a tendency to play down to our opponent. We haven't seen that yet, but I do expect it to happen at least once or twice in these playoffs. Maybe a night like tonight. But the vibes are high, the morale is high, chemistry is high. I mean, we should be able to put the Raptors away in 4 or 5. So,
Yeah.
but looking on to series around the league, I mean, you had the Pelicans beating the Suns last night. You had the Heat beating the Hawks in a really close game, but Jimmy Butler dropping, I think it was
40,
43,
yeah.
43 points, and he was hitting threes, something you never see from Jimmy Butler. But I mean, Heat looked pretty good. The Suns, I mean, you have that thing about Scott Foster and Chris Paul, and how Chris Paul is 0-14 in the last 14 games Scott Foster's refed.
Yeah.
Pelicans look pretty good. CJ McCollum, Brandon Ingram. So a lot of guys played good last night. The Grizzlies kind of stepped it up last night against the Timberwolves and blew them out. But yeah, that's what's going on around the league right now. But for the Suns, you saw Devin Booker get injured. The hammy got messed up a little bit. I think it was in the third quarter, and the Pelicans took advantage of that. But
Yeah,
yeah, a lot of a
I
lot
I
of
think
storylines around the league.
I think that series is interesting, for sure. That Pelicans and Suns, because the Pelicans, like you said, they ran with it. As soon as they got that bit of lead, they really had a tremendous third quarter last night. The New Orleans Pelicans, that was something that I mean, they won the third quarter and they rode that momentum into the fourth. Ended up winning pretty handily, 125, 114. Brandon Ingram with 37, though. I mean, that kid can ball. And he almost had a triple double. He was an assist shy of a 37-point triple double. Jonas Valanciunas is a rebound machine. It's a pretty good matchup for them right now. But again, I feel like they're even at this point, right? Both teams missing their best players. When you've got Booker without the Suns without Booker, and then the Pelicans without Zion. So it's an interesting storyline there. We don't know how long Booker is going to be out. But even if he misses a game, I feel like the Pelicans coming back to New Orleans, that could be a sticky situation there for the Suns.
Yeah, if Booker's missing some time, then you're looking at a completely different series, especially with heading back to New Orleans. And I know the New Orleans crowd is going to be loud, and they're going to have the Pelicans have momentum on their side right now. The Suns cannot go down 2-1. I mean, they can, but it'll be definitely a huge worry for them. But I still have the Suns winning in 5 or 6. So
Yeah,
that's
I think the Suns can pull it out because they're just the better team, no doubt about it. But it's going
yeah,
to be
even
interesting to
without Devin
see.
Booker.
Yeah, interesting to see how they respond. What type of game style do they bring? Do they give Chris Paul the keys to the offense shooting wise? That's something interesting. Like, does Cam Johnson? I would expect his usage to go up. Does Mikal Bridges get more shots? How is Cam Payne implemented into that offense? There's so many question marks about the Suns because this season they've been so fluent and so methodical and strategic with their offense that everybody has a role. So when you take somebody out of that pretty big piece, how do they respond? They've done it earlier in the season. They played really well without Chris Paul. You bring him back in, and they're still a very, very good team. I have no doubts they can figure it out. But with the Pelicans having that second half they did last night, coming back to New Orleans, they're also going to be the team riding high. And you've got Brandon Ingram. I mean, you've got Valanciunas, like I said, who's dominating the glass last night. So I think that you come into this one, and if you're the Suns, you got to figure something out quick, and you just gotta go out there and play basketball. For the Pelicans, on the other hand, like I said, momentum in their favor, home crowd. They need to have a spirited effort and just try and gut one out against number one seed, see how things get interesting.
Yeah, with the Pelicans, I mean, with what's on their side, they have nothing to lose. Like,
Right.
they literally have nothing to lose right now. They're expected to get blown out in this series. So, I mean, it'd be kind of cool if they, got some people talking and got a little upset here. I mean, a lot of people have the Suns winning the championship this year, and I think the Pelicans competing with them kind of scares a lot of people. So, definitely something to look forward to moving on, and I cannot wait to watch this series as it heads back to New Orleans.
Yeah, and another series I cannot wait to watch as it'll go to Minnesota, but it is the Grizzlies and the Timberwolves. It is tied at 1-1 there. The Grizzlies last night picking up the win, 124-96. The Grizzlies a really good third quarter. Also came out really strong in this game. John Morant almost had a triple double. Desmond Bain was really good. And they just got an all around really good squad when you look at guys like Xavier Tillman, Zaire Williams, Brandon Clark played really well, Dylan Brooks, Jaren Jackson Jr. They've got a lot of guys that complement John Morant. I think that they can go in and beat the Timberwolves. I haven't been too impressed with Cat. So, I mean, he's been good, but he hasn't been, all NBA type of dominance, 15 points last game. He had 11 rebounds, but yeah, I would like to see like an outburst of 30 or 35 from Cat.
Yeah, the first game in that series was really, really good.
Yes.
Everybody was kind of balling out, but the Timberwolves got the best of them. But Ja has to step it up. He only had 23 points last night. I know it was a blowout, but kind of everybody on that team has to step it up for them to win because they weren't looked as contenders going into this season, and some people still don't view them as contenders. Some people have already counted them out, especially losing at that first game against the Wolves. But I think they have a lot of noise to make, and I think they'll make that this year. I think their ceiling is going to the Western Conference Finals. I would love to see it, but got a lot of tough matchups coming forward. If they beat the Timberwolves and the Warriors beat the Nuggets, then that's a Grizzlies Warriors matchup. So it's definitely something to look forward to.
Yeah, so you've got tomorrow night at 7:30 is when game 3 will be for them, I believe. And I think like this, yeah, tomorrow at 7:30, and I think this is going to be super fun to watch a playoff game in Minnesota. The atmosphere that they'll bring after not having playoff basketball there for so long, so that's going to be cool to see. How Minnesota turns out, but I really think that the Grizzlies are just too good. If they don't win in 5, I think they win at 6. I think they just have the superior squad. We haven't seen the best from John Morant quite yet. I think Dylan Brooks has a bit more in his tank, Desmond Bain alike. And, they just got guys that do what they do. Kyle Anderson really hasn't made too much of an impact, but he can play well at times. I really love Zaire Williams. I love Jaren Jackson Jr. Bringing that defense, that rim protection that's much needed in a playoff series. And I think they have all the tools to go really far. And I think they can steamroll this Timberwolves team.
Yeah, I think they really can. It just takes a good effort from kind of everybody, and it's kind of what you need from a good playoff team. But that's I expect the Grizzlies to win in 5, and that's that they're just the better team. So moving on to a good matchup for tonight, you got the Nets and the Celtics. As you probably know, Celtics took game 1 by a buzzer beater spinning layup by Jason Tatum, and it was very electric. I mean, it was a fun game. Kyrie went crazy. Kevin Durant didn't shoot too well, but I expect to see him to ramp up the scoring. What are your thoughts on tonight and kind of how this series is going to go?
Yeah, I think that the Nets will win tonight. Like I just think it's a tightly contested series. It'll go 7 games. The Nets will bring it back. They'll probably split each other at home. I'd expect the Nets to win at home and then win one at home and then lose one at home. I feel like it's going to be that type of series. And you look at the slate tonight. You got 3 Eastern Conference games, so no Western Conference series tonight, which is interesting. But I really love the slate for today's games. In this Nets Celtics game, I would expect I wouldn't be surprised if Kyrie Irving had 45 tonight. The way that he had what he said in his post game press conference, some interactions he had with some Boston fans, and Kevin Durant is going to probably be Kevin Durant in that game where in game one, where the Celtics had a pretty good lead heading into the fourth, and they were just abysmal in the fourth quarter. I don't even think they put up 20 points in the fourth. So I think that's a worry. See how the Celtics can close this game out when they don't have a chance to hit a buzzer beater. I don't know how reliant that can be to beat a team with KD and Kyrie on it.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be hard to beat that Nets team, but I think the Celtics have it in them to do that. They have a great defense, but obviously the center injury hurts for them. Al Horford stepped it up last game. But they just got to have a solid game all around. You cannot, let your foot off the gas in the fourth quarter, and that's kind of what they did in game one. Just got to keep the scoring up, keep the defense up, and I expect this to go all the way to 7, but I do have the Celtics.
Yeah, I think it could go either way. If Ben Simmons comes back, then it's probably gonna be like Celtics in 5 or 6. But other than that, I see it in 7 games in a really, really tightly contested series. Another one tonight is the Bucks and the Bulls. And I like the Bucks pretty big in this game. I just don't see the Bulls winning a game here
Yeah,
in this series.
there's really nothing much. I mean, I have to say about the Bucks and Bulls. Obviously, the Bulls made it competitive, but known choker. I don't want to say choker, but kind of to fall apart in playoffs is a guy like DeMar DeRozan, and he had an abysmal performance. He just didn't play well. The Bucks also didn't play well, and I think that's why that game was so close. But the Bucks are the better team, and they should take care of business, and I believe they would. They will. I think the Bucks will sweep. Maybe the Bulls take one game, but I highly doubt it. So I have the Bucks in 4. I mean, there's not really much you can say. The Bucks are just the better team.
Yeah, I totally agree with you with that stance. In some series that we haven't really talked about, you've got like we touched on the Hawks and the Heat winning yesterday. They lead 2-0. It's going to be interesting to see what they come from Atlanta. I think they win in 5. Uh, they're just the better team. Trae Young really hasn't shown uh, his best yet. And another series, Warriors Nuggets. Warriors look like they have the front foot by a pretty good margin. Nikola Jokic got ejected in a game. He was very frustrated. Got to keep those emotions in check, big fella. But I think the Warriors just too superior on every front here against Denver.
Fun stat for the listeners: the Nuggets are actually better with Nikola Jokic off the floor. I know, surprised to hear, but the Nuggets actually have been better in the past 2 games with Jokic on the bench. It's crazy. I was mind blown when I heard that stat, but kind of the thing we were all saying what happened, and that's Jokic getting kind of exposed on the defensive end, especially in the pick and roll, and the Warriors offense bringing Jokic all the way out to the perimeter and beating him with that pick and roll. I mean, it's been highly effective. The Warriors, their death lineup with Steph, Clay, Jordan Poole, Draymond, and I forget who the other guy was, but that lineup is very, very scary.
Yeah, I think that I saw something today where Jordan Poole had a higher VORP than Jokic in the
Yeah,
series, which
yeah,
is pretty funny.
I
Yeah,
saw that
so
today.
I like the going back and forth, and the Warriors fans have kind of been against their advanced stats for the whole time, and now that they're exposing them in the playoffs so far, it's pretty fun to see. And yeah, like Jokic defensive wise, he's been abysmal in this series. Steph coming around the screens has just haunted Nikola Jokic. And no, he's not getting much help from anybody else, but it hasn't been pretty to watch. And the Steve Kerr and the coaching staff for Golden State has done a pretty good job letting Jokic have it defensively, and that's who they've been attacking. And I think there's no reason for them to stop that at this point. For Jokic, he's just got to stay level headed and just play his type of style of basketball, which he can really slow the game down and get things rolling and smoothly, and so he can get his players his shooters like Bones Highland and players like Will Barton and Aaron Gordon open shots in rhythm. When he's not doing that, they're just a bad team.
Yeah, and like you said about Steve Kerr, their coaching staff, I mean, what you want to do in the playoffs is find your opponent's weak point on their defensive end and attack it. And the Nuggets' weak point is Jokic. So they've done a fantastic job at attacking that. I mean, Jokic can't guard the perimeter or the rim, so pick and roll works either way. Beat him off the dribble, drive to the rim. He's not blocking it, or kind of set up for the 3-pointer there. But yeah, if you're the MVP, you cannot be getting ejected out of games. It's just unacceptable. It's happened 2 years in a row. He did it last year when he was getting swept by the Suns, and he's doing it this year when he might get swept by the Warriors. I mean, you just can't let it happen, and it's just unacceptable because if you want to be the MVP of the league, you got to show why you are, and he just hasn't done that. He's looked really kind of childish out there with the way he's complaining and screaming at the refs and getting all these texts.
Yeah, I agree. He's got to keep his emotions in check and be a leader for this Nuggets team, which them this season they don't have the best reputation of being good sports.
Yeah.
I'll put it that way. So I think that this series is over. Probably a sweep. The Nuggets just they just haven't shown anything that they had in those spurts in the regular season where they were getting hot. They were making their shots. It was Jokic doing a lot of the work, but you have Bones Highlands with spurts of really really good games. Will Barton was playing well. Monte Morris was playing well. You're not seeing any of that, and a lot of it is because of how they run their offense, and it's Jokic centric. And when he's not, forcing stuff to his guys, they play a lot better. But with the pressure that Draymond especially has put on that defense and the way they're Golden State attacking on offense, speeding the game up a lot more, they're just running circles around the Nuggets right now. And it's a long shot for the Nuggets to come back and win this series.
Yeah, I think the series is just about over. I know they're heading back to Denver, but I just don't think the Nuggets have talent or enough what it takes to even beat this Warriors team by one.
Yeah.
I think it's over, and I think it's going to be Grizzlies Warriors in the second round.
A series tied at 1 is the Mavericks and the Jazz. You had the Mavericks winning game 2. They won by 6 points, a good game. Dallas Mavericks had a really good fourth quarter, and once again, you saw the Jazz with a fourth quarter lead, and they lost it, something that they've done in the regular season all season long. It's carried over now into the postseason. Where do you see this series going?
I see this going in 7 to the Mavericks. I think when Luka comes back, I think this is a game changer, and the Jazz just can't compete when Luka's out on the floor. I mean, you lost a game where Luka was not playing in, and you couldn't do that this series, and you did. Now Luka might come back, and Luka is Luka, and he's gonna do Luka things. I mean, this Mavs team is just too good, and I just think the Mavs are going to win in 7. I don't think the Jazz have enough. I think they have some real internal problems with their own organization and their players. So I think they have a lot of work to do in the off season, but I do have Mavs in 6 or 7.
I have Mavs in 6 just for the simple fact you said that once Luka comes back, it is wraps, and the Jazz
Yeah.
will have no answer whatsoever. I've seen them try to run some offense through Rudy Gobert, mostly through Donovan Mitchell, and when they're not hitting their 3-point shots, they're just not fun to watch. And the Mavericks, to a degree, they've gotten themselves in an offensive identity crisis without Luca. But I really like watching Jalen Brunson. He's a really, really good player, and he's gonna get paid sometime soon. That's for certain for Brunson. So I think that's good for the
Villanova legend.
yeah, Nova 11. That's good for the Mavericks that, they got that one game. That's all they needed. That then now they know that they can go and win this series. And what's next for the Jazz? Let's go ahead and say they lose, first round exits to um to the Mavericks. You lost after being up 2-0 against the Clippers last season. The year before that, in the bubble, you blew a 3-1 lead. You haven't had much success in the playoffs. Donovan Mitchell, Rudy Gobert, your two core players don't look like they're working out. What's next for Utah, organizationally wise?
I think Donovan Mitchell is gone. I think he does leave and go elsewhere and gets paid because his contract is up at the end of the year. Am I correct? Is that correct?
I believe so. But he would be a restricted free agent, I believe.
Um, I just don't think he wants to come back to the Jazz. I don't think he enjoys playing with Rudy Gobert. I think he just wants a fresh start somewhere else with a new team, new roster, new challenges. I think he's done all he can for this Jazz team, but it's not enough. The team hasn't been enough, and I think he's gone. So those are just my thoughts on him.
He would have to be traded because he is locked in under contract until 26 for Donovan Mitchell.
Oh, okay. He must have
So
signed a new contract.
he signed the extension.
Oh,
Um,
okay. I forgot then.
so it's gonna be in 2026. He'll be an unrestricted free agent, but in that 2025-26 season, he's gonna be a $37 million cap hit there for uh for the Jazz. But yeah, I think that they're going to a rebuild, a mean rebuild, where they trade D Mitch, and I think he probably wants to go to New York. So I see him going to the Knicks,
Gobert?
and then Gobert. No, Gobert, I don't know where he's going to go, but Donovan Mitchell, I feel like he's going to go to the Knicks back home.
Yeah.
He's pretty big in New York. He plays his best at Madison Square Garden. That's the one thing you always bet overs on Donovan Mitchell when he goes to Madison Square Garden. That's
Mhm.
one you got to keep that in mind. And Rudy Gobert, he just needs to go to a contender that is looking for a rim protecting big man, and they got to accumulate draft picks and young guys and start from scratch because they're not a free agent destination. So that's all they can do at this point.
Yeah, not a free agent destination. You have to build out of the draft with something like that. So I think if you get first rounded this year, then it's time to really sit back and say, all right, clean house. Everybody's gone. Fire sale. Give me your picks, and we're gonna move on with things. But that's kind of all I have to say about the Jazz and their team and that whole series. But I do think they get first rounded.
Yeah, you can't keep Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert there for much longer. You either bring in somebody that's really, really good, which I don't see them doing, or you start over. And I don't think they have the capabilities to bring in somebody really, really good. They don't have the assets draft wise, and they don't have the assets young player wise, and they just don't have the free agent market to do that, to bring in a big name free agent. So I see them selling off both Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert.
Yeah, I think that's everything. Is that every single playoff series we've gone through?
Yeah, I believe so. So actually, I want this real quick. What's your game script for Sixers Raptors tonight?
Like who I think goes off
Yeah,
and
lay me through what's going to happen through tonight's game.
all right. The crowd's obviously gonna be crazy in Toronto tonight. I do think the Raptors get out to an early lead and kind of lead for. I think they lead for the first three quarters, and the Sixers just aren't looking that well. I mean, nobody's shooting that well until until the fourth quarter, where Sixers are completely got the green light on and everybody's feeling it and kind of come back from like 10 and win the game by 5 and outscore them by 15 in the fourth. That's my predictions. I think it'll take a little bit for the Sixers to get acclimated to Toronto and that whole kind of arena.
I'll say this: Embiid gets off to a bit of a slower start. You have James Harden and Tyrese Maxey run the show. The Sixers have about 2 to 5 point lead at halftime, something pretty modest, back and forth the whole time. But the Sixers are always just their nose in front. And then you get to the fourth, and they pull away, and they win by 13. So that's what
I
I
like
got.
it. Yeah, I do think we're gonna get off to a slow start tonight. I just think
Yeah.
that's gonna happen. Because with this Sixers team, it usually happens. But anything else you got left to say about the playoffs or the Sixers or the Raptors?
No, just Sixers in 5. I feel like
Yeah,
that's pretty set in stone. Similar to the Wizards series last season, where you got the gentleman's
yeah.
sweep.
But one more thing I wanted to talk about is everybody complaining about free throws. I just want to say one last thing.
Oh, let's
Uh,
talk about like Raptors fans in general.
Okay, but the one thing I wanted to say was nobody was complaining when Ben Simmons shot 24 free throws in a single quarter,
Correct.
right? But now that Joel Embiid is a good free throw shooter, now you want to blame the refs. But it was haha all fun and games when Ben Simmons was shooting 24 in a quarter.
Correct.
So
It was a
so
joke. It was like he was the butt of a joke, right? Like it
yeah,
was funny to them.
yeah. I just think I just think I've seen the worst of Raptors fans this year, or in the past week, and I've seen a lot of horrible, like not okay, like dark jokes, but Raptors fans will be Raptors fans. You really can't do anything about it.
So our good friend Dwani was scouring through Raptors Reddit. Did you see what she posted the screenshot of today?
I did. Do you want to read it?
I will read it. It's from Cantos001 on Twitter. This was on Raptors Reddit or Toronto Raptors. It says, "I used to play like Embiid. He is reckless on purpose." That's how he starts off. It gets funnier, guys. When I see Embiid play as he is now, it reminds me of how I used to play, and it's frustrating and it pisses me off that the NBA allows it. Not proud of it. I was known as a Shaq at my local street ball court and went through a phase where I charged hard at everything. Big hard turns to my blind side, didn't care who was there, charged right into the lane, smash it into the best offensive player on D while going for the ball, come what may, limited offensive moves. So, that's my favorite one. And then he goes, it's like, so make no mistake about it. Embiid knows what he's doing. He knows people will be injured. He knows his skill set is limited, and this is how he can win. He knows people will give way when he drives, think twice on their drives, etc. He will only be stopped by a stronger player and or fearless player like Giannis, Gasol, Draymond. I think it's funny. Like the meme, like who invited my man's blood when he puts Gasol with Giannis and Draymond.
Yeah.
like what are we doing here? And then that's or by an obviously more skilled player with equal type like Ibaka. He didn't intend to
Ibaka.
injure. Yeah, that we're gonna move past that. He didn't intend to injure, but he certainly intends to show you that he doesn't care if you get hurt when he rumbles into you. At least that's how I used to play. But that was street ball. Eventually, I got more moves, played with better players, played real basketball with refs. There's no doubt in my mind the NBA have some kind of edit coming down telling the refs to let him run amok.
I usually always scroll through Raptors Reddit after their losses.
All right,
I
so
do that with I
start
do
with
that.
that. So let's just cut that out, and then when I came back, and
Okay.
then start now after I finished reading.
Okay. Yeah, I do think or sorry. I do like to read the Raptors Reddit after they lose, and I do that for a lot of teams in the NBA. The Sixers, obviously, but teams will always say the funniest things after losses.
Yeah, I think it's funny, and their fans have been just going nuts about everything, talking about the score without free throws, and I've seen things like, Jameis Winston would have won MVP in 2019 without an interception, stuff like that. It's kind of funny to me, like, yeah, it's kind of it's going crazy at that point,
Hmm.
and their fans have always been bad. Like they haven't had their greatest fans. Like even going back to the 2019 series, I remember some things being thrown out there. But this it's actually been funny. It's just like it's not even them just being like bad fans. It's that, and it's just their coping method is so funny.
Yeah,
Uh, they're 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 hilarious. Their fans like just like there's no way you were that brain dead.
yeah. Um, it's definitely funny, but I think that's all that we have for today. Um, Thank you everybody for watching, especially if you made it this far. I didn't expect this episode to be this long, but once you get carried in conversation, you never know where it can go. But I definitely enjoyed this episode. Thank you to my co-host SixersGraeme
Thank you.
for your time, and make sure to tune in tonight for the Sixers game. I mean, it'll be a good one. We'll see. Um, we'll have our regular scheduled episode out on Friday, or at least we should. We'll put out on our Twitter if we don't. But make sure to follow our Twitter at SFTS podcast _ Check the link tree in the bio.
Do
Like,
that. All of it.
subscribe, leave a rating,
Do all of
and
that.
enjoy your day,
Yeah.
everybody. Go Sixers.
Go Sixers, peace.